All right, I'll call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. This board is written and acknowledges a land acknowledgement anti-racism statement. Both of them are posted on the board's website. Roll call tonight. We have everybody here, although Kanu is having some technical difficulties, but hopefully she'll be back in here shortly. Adoption of the agenda.
Adopt the agenda.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. We'll move into announcements. Anyone have any announcements? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to property owner comments.
Yeah. Quickly moving into property owners' comments here. We've got 11 attendees with us tonight. So if you'd like to jump in for the first round of property owners' comments, just use raise hand in Zoom and we'll bring you to the meeting. There will be a second set of these as well later on, just before the closed session, item number 7 on the agenda. And I do have a hand raised here. I've got Leslie. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on over. Leslie, go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Okay, good evening. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things from the last meeting and from other meetings. Am I correct that at the last meeting, the board voted to repair the golf course bridge? There's some $323,000, and that was to come out of surf. The clubhouse remediation was getting paid back to ops, and that they voted to pay about $26,000 plus from UDR. And then there was a kind of a late afternoon 49-page addendum that was added, having to do with quite a bit of work on the roads. It was stormwater remediation that had to be done. There was work proposed for Spring Road and for Cascade Lane and for Green Hill. And then what it said in there was other potential roads to be yet to be determined. There's no final answer, on how much work there was going to be done. And the board voted $30,000 from roads in order to start working on study in order to do these things. And of course, that's not the total amount that you are going to be spending. In fact, you probably don't even really know at this point how much you're going to be spending or what you're going to be spending it on. This here. And I'm looking at the budget for this year. It says that the expenditures are going to be $1,800,000 approximately, of which $738 is already obligated. So you have $1 million plus to spend on the roads, and you're kind of working with it at this point. You don't know how much that is going to be. And I just wanted to mention that at the Finance Committee meeting, one of the Finance Committee members asked, what is the roads budget for this year? What are you going to be spending it on? What are you going to be doing? And Director Wold said that the roads budget, the roads plan had been approved at the last board meeting. And I'm a little confused on exactly what that meant. Could you give me an explanation?
What was brought before the board was basically the association has an obligation from doing some work on Marigold Drive in 2016-17 to do stormwater mitigation.
Yeah, that was well explained in the addendum. I understand that.
And so what was proposed is Spring Road is a place to accomplish the treatment for both that project and the paving of Spring Road and potentially additional work to be done outside of that. But the Whatcom County has to approve how much treatment capacity they're going to allow us to utilize out of Spring Road to be able to determine how much road rehabilitation work we'll be able to do, and whether or not Whatcom County will let us bank any additional mitigation we do above and beyond what's needed for the old project and Spring Road. So basically, Cascade Lane was a road that was identified in 2019 and 2020 for the micro seal. It didn't end up happening.
Yeah,
due
that
to the
was in
condition of the
the
road.
agenda. Yep.
So that is, and that road needs some rebuilding on it that is going to likely trigger treatment requirements. Green Hill has similar conditions, and there are other roads as well that have similar conditions that P&W is working to determine, where those will be and design those with professional engineer.
Yeah, no, that again was all in the agenda, and I understand all of that. What's not clear to me is Director Wold's statement that the board had pretty much approved the roads plan at the last board meeting. And I don't know, to me, you didn't really approve a roads plan because you haven't finalized what you're going to be doing yet.
My recollection is we approved,
Yes,
authorized study to go on and get a budget, a quote for the roads at the last meeting.
Okay, so it's a work in progress. So you haven't finalized the budget yet for this year's roads plan. Is that true?
no, because we've only obligated the amount that we obligated at the last meeting. We have in our capital budget a planning level amount, which I think was somewhere around $750,000. I don't remember off the top of my head, for significant roads project to deal with some of our roads that are in their worst condition, falling apart, delaminating.
Yeah, I know there's the money there, but I'm not seeing a plan yet for what you're going to be doing this year.
Well, the plan involves Spring Road and treatment there.
Yep.
At a minimum.
Cascade Lane and Green.
And then looking at Cascade Lane, Green Hill, and potentially other roads, depending upon how much capacity Whatcom County will allow us to utilize at Spring Road to do mitigation for other road projects elsewhere.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Leslie. I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees. And we do have Rob with his hand raised. I'll go ahead and bring you over now, Rob. Go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. How are you tonight?
Good evening.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, Rob.
Evening. I just wanted to follow up on some conversation we've had in the past in regard to our launch ramp dock that, I think even last summer we talked about inaccessibility for people with disability to get out onto the launch ramp. And I know there's been a couple of bids, or at least one bid that came back. Have you all had a chance to look at it? That's kind of the first part of my question. And then can we get this accessibility issue resolved for the upcoming season here in the spring and summer?
I was not aware that there was any bids for that, so I haven't seen anything.
No.
Okay. Well, I think this is, being it's a ADA accessibility issue, I think we talked about it last year. The season's coming up. I appreciate staff getting out and marking it with real bright yellow paint. I think that's just a kind of an interim fix. At this point, people with a disability could not get access to it. And I know that last year you all had expressed that you felt that accessibility was very important to members with disability. I just really like to see us get this resolved before May.
Can I say something? So as a former board director, you should understand the importance of actually connecting the budget with the activities of staff. This is why things don't actually happen. Staff working autonomously and, you know, coming up with bids and everything and actually not including the board is an inappropriate way to get anything funded.
Sonia,
It's also,
excuse me,
I
Sonia.
think it's really
I really
important
don't.
to, I think
I'm
it's
not looking to
very
be lectured
important.
tonight.
Well,
I'm just bringing up
I know, but you
Sonia,
brought this
please.
up. No,
it's
well,
my
please, it's
Sonia,
my
this is
turn.
my
I was actually
moment.
talking.
Sonia, this is
You're
my moment.
disrespectful to me.
It's my comment, and I would please like to have the floor back. What I'm
Of course you
saying,
do.
I'm not getting in the way. Information that was passed to me is that there's at least one bid. That's all. There's no autonomous, or I'm not trying to, I know how it works. It needs to go to the finance committee. It's just last year, you all committed to me to resolve the issue, and promises made, promises kept. I'd
They
like you to
can't be
resolve the
kept
issue.
if they're not actually, you don't go through the proper channels. You can't come and keep coming in and blindsiding us in these committees and then saying we're not doing something. When you're working with staff, we don't know about it. And you're telling us these bids and staff is doing this and staff is doing that. We're telling you, we're not aware of it. And you're acting like we're not keeping our promises.
Sonia,
What you're
I'm not
doing
acting
is
like
that you're
Sonia. I'm not
ensuring that
acting
we
like
can't keep a promise.
Sonia, I'm not acting like anything. I'm just asking
I'm
the
pointing out
question.
the facts. You're
No, I'm pointing
ensuring
out
that
the
we
fact
can't
to you
keep our
too. I'm
promises.
saying, where are we at to get the issue resolved? You've had almost a year to resolve the issue.
It wasn't an issue. You were on the board when
Who
that ramp got
is
put
working
in.
the issue?
You
and
were
who
Hey
is
on the
getting
board.
getting very angry.
let's
But
Rob,
let's place it
Sonia,
where
sorry,
it
Rob,
Joshua.
belongs.
Sonia,
Go
Rob
ahead.
has the
Everyone
floor,
needs to stop.
Sonia.
We were not the
Come on,
board that put
let's get
that
past
ramp
this.
in
There's
there.
apparently a bid that we need to take a look at. I'm not sure
No,
where
actually,
that's
that's
coming
not how
from.
it works. That is not how it
Okay.
works. There's
I think we're-
policies and procedures.
Actually,
I'm just-
Sonia,
I'm
like
at-
we do have a responsibility. I know for our building that we built, I mean, we had to have accessibility. It's a law, like we do have to be looking at it. I don't know what happened last year, but we don't want to be in violation of any laws.
No,
It's very
for sure
important.
don't.
Could I speak for just a minute?
Sure.
So first of all, I did look into how ADA rules apply to HOAs, and largely they only apply if you allow, if it's subject to public. So if a facility is private, meaning only HOA members and their guests can use it, then the HOA does not have to follow ADA rules. So I don't know whether that's true of the marina or not, but I'm just saying. And the other thing is that generally it's when there are planned improvements going forward that you have to implement ADA improvements if it was already a pre-existing facility. So, and I'm not going to pretend to be the be all end all of legal advice, because I'm not a lawyer, but I did look this up because I was concerned about what was being promised versus what we're obligated to do, because we have to make sure that whatever we do, that we do it within the context both of our budget and what's legally required. So in this particular case, we had a staff member apparently working on creating a bidding process for a project that has not gone through the processes. So the fact that that's happened is unfortunate, because both the board and myself were unaware this was even going on. And so there is a process that we've got to adopt projects within the budget. And there's also rules that surround ADA rules. So Timmy, it is correct that in some situations, if we were building a brand new facility, I'd have to look carefully. We'd probably, regardless of whether it was the law, we'd probably want to make sure we did that. but an HOA is not the same as a municipality. And so the rules apply differently to us.
So Dan, can I make a comment? I appreciate what you've shared. This dock was replaced last year. Okay. And however, we are where we are. And I agree with what you're saying. We need to make sure we're following the law. But I would also ask the board, what's also the right thing to do? I am a member of the community, and I would like to have access to the dock and into the facilities that of course, Ann, I was involved in the replacement of it. My point is that what's the right thing to do as well? I pay my dues. I paid my fee to store my boat. I just would like access to be able to get out like all members. And I know I keep bringing this up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up because the board last year told me this was an issue that they felt was important and would resolve it. That's all. So Sonia, I apologize if I was shouting at you, but I've been very, very, very patient with this, and I'm now getting quite frustrated.
We didn't promise anything about that lift. I just want to be really clear. You were a member of the board that put that ramp in there. You guys did not make it ADA compliant. And you mentioned also in another meeting, because you keep doing this, you brought it up in another meeting that you can't get in the door at the restroom. And I actually found all the documentation where we did replace that whole door and that area to make it ADA compliant. Now, as far as that ramp, trying to keep coming in here and acting as if we didn't keep a promise when we weren't the board that did that. And you is actually
Sonia,
offensive
let me
to
ask
me.
you a
And
question.
secondly,
Let me ask a question. Will the board resolve this issue for me? Will they work with staff to resolve the issue
let
this
me
year?
ask you a question, because the last time you actually offered to take Dan out on your boat. So you are accessing your boat, correct?
So Sonia, what I said was if I could get out onto the dock, I'd be happy to take him for a ride in the boat. I also didn't say that I couldn't get into the door in the restroom. I said it was very difficult. And I think that the right thing to do is for us to—
I'm curious about why—
No, you're interrupting me, excuse me. What I'm saying is I think the right thing to do is for us to assess our infrastructure and see how accessible it is and how we can improve it. In the case of the dock, we cannot, someone in a wheelchair cannot access the dock. They can't.
So I'd like to respond to that. So we are
Thank you.
Assessing our infrastructure, one of them being the parks and the playgrounds where volunteers continually to direct our staff. And there's a very strong likelihood that all of the playgrounds that have been installed at great expense for this rec special assessment are also not ADA compliant. So there's issues with that, that we're going to address, the things that affect that have the biggest impact, and the things that by law that we need to address immediately. And that's what we'll do. And it's like continually coming into these—
including the disabled community and helping you do that assessment?
No, we'll hire actual professionals that's their job, is to come in and do that.
Okay, when will that be happening?
It'll be happening over the next couple of months. It's been in process.
Okay. What about the access to the dock? Will that be happening before the season opens this year?
I can't make that promise, Rob. That's what we keep telling you. It did not even go through the process. You keep talking to a staff member that does not have the authority to direct funds or anything else. They do not have the authority to direct the funds of this association.
I'm not asking. Okay, Sonia, I'm going to agree to disagree with you. I'm not directing anybody. I'm asking questions.
I'm talking about a staff member.
I'm asking questions. There's nothing wrong with me asking a question to anybody.
I'm
in the
answering
community.
question.
There really isn't. I have no authority to direct any expenditure of funds. I don't know what you're
I'm
talking
saying
about.
to you that there's a process to make this happen. We have a budgeting process. We have a planning process. It's a way that it goes up to the chain for us to determine what we're going to fund and what we're looking at. We're very meticulous about the planning process. We didn't put that ramp in, but we are looking at this community as a whole and dealing with the infrastructure as a whole because it's been neglected for quite a while. And we're trying to address all of that and ensure that we're not raising dues and that we are not implementing special assessments and that everyone is being taken care of.
All right. Rob, I think at this point, it's still an ongoing process. I don't think any commitments can be made to you in a meeting tonight like that.
Well, I guess I'll have to figure out how on my own I'm going to be able to get up onto the ramp to launch my boat this year. So I guess it's tough to be me, and I'm going to have to figure it out on my own. So thank you for listening to me. I apologize if I raised my voice. That's not how I want to behave. But I think you can tell that I'm extremely frustrated. I pay my dues like anybody else. I pay my mortgage fees, and I won't have the ability to be able to get out onto the ramp and board my boat. So it doesn't seem right, We've been talking about this since last year.
Amy, did you have a comment as well? You've had your hand raised for a while.
The only thing I wanted to add, and I don't know, what happened last year, and I just wanted to speak to Dan's comment that it's only HOA, but because of the status that we have with the tax exempt, we have allowed a lot of people to come in and use our facilities. So that's where I think we want to make sure that we are not going to be into any legal problems if there is a legal requirement for ADA accessibility. We want to make sure, because we are allowing other people to come in, and obviously we want we're not going to solve Rob's problem tonight, but it's good that it's being brought to our attention, and we just need to really look at it and make sure that everybody has access.
So I'll leave you with this to speak to Timey's point and to Dan's. We have tenants in our marina who are not residents of Sudden Valley. The public launches there. Somebody can come in from the outside of the community and buy a daily launch fee. They could live in Bellingham. They could live in Seattle and come up here and pay to launch and do that. That is the public. We may want to, well, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rob. Josh, unless you wanted to say something to Rob there, I see you've got your hand raised as well now.
Yeah, Rob, just so you know, I did ask about that last year, and I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus. They're not here, but I was told that it was being looked into, and I agree. I mean, I think anyone who has a disability should have a voice there. Obviously, there's the process, but I just want to say, sorry that it got a little hot there on both of your parts, but we just got to be able to talk through this stuff. But yeah, I don't think the board can give a definitive answer, but I do agree that if we can make accommodations for disabilities, I think that would be great and part of our whole community plan.
Thank you, Joshua, for your comment, and I appreciate it. I agree. We should be able to talk through it. I got heated, and I think I've made amends several times for that. It's the best I can say at this point. But I am frustrated.
Well, I'd like to.
I think a lot of people's frustrated with a lot of stuff, but don't lose hope.
Well, I'd
Thank
like
you,
to point
Joshua.
out that that, like I said, there's a process, and you don't, and calling into meetings and going to staff doesn't get you to, it's like, I'm going to skip the line and I want a commitment right now. There is a planning process. We're working on it. As I said, these things are in place. We've got people out looking at all of these things that should have been addressed with our infrastructure and with this community. But you keep trying to get us to make promises during this planning process where we're having to address so many different areas. It's kind of a little unfair, Rob, to do that. We're all part of this community.
Agreed.
And we
Agreed.
do
And
need
if
to work
you-
together. We all pay our dues. We all need to work together.
I agree with that. And I think even in interim, there's something we can do in the interim. We could build something out of treated material and put it in place as a temporary situation until we can have a final situation. But it'd probably be a couple $100. I bet I could get a group of tenants down there to help do that as a work party. So
I just want to speak to that, which is to say that doing something like that raises a whole host of extensive liability issues. So I appreciate the idea, but I can tell you, having dealt with similar situations in the city of Bellingham, I don't think I can find a lawyer who would recommend taking that route, because it exposes us to millions of dollars of liability over something that, will save us maybe $10,000 or something. So I think so. So the sentiment is great. I just want to encourage the board to not go down that path, because we would not have the liability coverage to address it.
thank you, Dan.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll go ahead and move you back to the attendees at this point, Rob. Have a
Thank
good evening.
you. Good evening, everyone.
Have a good night.
All right. And we do have one more hand raised here from Linda. I'll go ahead and bring Linda on over at this point. Go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Oh, hell, can I have a half hour? No, I'm teasing. To begin with, I just want to say this. I was there and I was part of the board that put in the new ramp. I can't believe the county didn't make us bring that up to code for ADA when they issued the permit for the work. That's all I got to say about that. But I have a question for Kim and for Joel. So I listened to the finance committee meeting, and on page 3 of 6 of the financials, there's the capital reserve funds report. And it says that there are obligated expenses of $737,926. If I go to the capital project report, which is page 2 of 3 of those reports, and if I look through all of the obligated funds on the far right, there's a bottom line that is a 2022 request that wasn't done until 1/27/22, and that amount of $41,784, if I'm not mistaken, is included in this 737,926 for the end of the year. How are we spending money before the before a capital memo is put out there? And should that amount be removed from that, which would change the obligated balance at the end of the year of 2021?
Linda, are you suggesting that 41,000 should have been in the prior year?
I
or-
can
No.
answer that question.
He can probably answer me. It shouldn't be in there yet.
I'll answer that question.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
So the reason why it's in there is that is the flood response spending that they approved. And so basically that was the board's decision to ratify that flood response spending. And so that involves invoices that happened in November and December. So, and you probably remember, Linda, you were the one that also said, that hey, since this is approved, then we do have like 40-some thousand dollars of expenses that should be swept in there from 2021 as well. So that's what you're looking at. Normally, you're right. I wouldn't put something that was approved in 2022 and pull it back into a 2021 capital project sheet like this. However, since this is ratified, basically this is a pot of money set aside for the flood response. These expenses that you see from 2021 pertain to that capital project that was approved.
Okay.
And that's the only reason. So it's kind of like an exception in this case.
Yeah, it would just really freak me out to look at that, because I'm like, well, wait a minute, because I don't know if you do I'm assuming you didn't do that transfer until after this capital memo was done, which was 1/27. So
Right.
that would mean it shouldn't be booked back to 2021. That's all. I can understand moving it, but I wouldn't think you would put it back into 2021 finances, since it wasn't approved until the end of January. That's all.
I mean, true, normally that wouldn't be the case, but in this sense, this was approved specifically after the fact for that flood response. Basically, at this point, what I'm doing is removing it from the 2021 expenses and shifting it over to capital.
I gotcha. I'm just saying, I think even the capital, if we don't approve it until after the first of the year, you shouldn't be moving that until after the first of the year. It's sitting there and it's probably already been paid out or whatever. And so you're moving it over, but I don't think it should be but that's just me, that I wouldn't do that. And I have one question for AJ and then I'm done. So I'm looking at the 2022 roads, ditches and culverts thing. And I know we're going to do Spring Road, but I hope, and I'm sure you know this already, that Spring Road, the design and the construction for that on this 2022 budget isn't scheduled out until 2024 and 2025. And I want, and I understand you said that, we have to do the mitigation, decided to do it early. Did you just find out from PNW that mitigation has to be done this year?
No, that's been on the record since that Marigold project happened. It normally was in our capital plannings as the lower clubhouse parking lot project to the tune of like over $500,000. So Spring Road was an area that was identified to both address a drainage issue and a roadway issue, along with this treatment mitigation that we were required to do, and potentially more above that. So basically, we were able to accomplish what was originally slotted for over $500,000 for, somewhere under $100,000. And then it'll also, hopefully, as long as the county agrees with all the calculations that the stormwater engineers are doing, will allow us to do some much needed road rehabilitation work so that we can implement a true pavement preservation program.
Gotcha. You may want to take a look at your stuff, because the Spring Road stuff for 24 and 25, just the design is like for 70, I think it's 73,000. This is really small print. And then the actual construction is somewhere around, it looks like close to 170,000. You may want to take a look at some of that if you're going to move it into this current year, because maybe you saved a little bit of money, but there's also, it looks like a ton of money for, the design and the actual construction. That's all. I'm done for now.
Yeah,
I may come back
the
later.
engineer's estimate is with it. It's pretty in line with that number. I think it's a little bit less maybe, but that was all in the addendum.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but you may want to look at it, because the monies that you have there aren't scheduled until 2024 and 25.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda. And moving you back to the attendees here. That seems to be all of our participants for property owners' comments this first time around, unless there's anybody else who wants to jump in quickly here. Just use raise hand in Zoom. Not seeing any more at this time, AJ.
All right. Well, we'll move on to general manager's report. So I will pass it over to Dan.
You didn't hear me say that, but I said, hold on here while I unmute myself. So just want to let you know a few things that have been going on lately, including we're making good progress on staffing, which is to say that we're moving forward with identifying candidates for Parks and Rec and for maintenance manager. And we're going to be starting to do recruitments for deputy GM candidates as well. In addition to that, there's been ongoing cleanup that's continuing from the various events we've had. And then we had another event this morning, which, while it was a bit challenging, there was ice underneath the snow from the precipitation falling on a cold surface, but the precipitation was rain. I think overall that went pretty well. There were a number of accidents that occurred, however. And so just for the community members that are listening, I would encourage you to, first of all, understand that we can't change the laws of physics. So please be very careful when you're driving in these conditions, which we're going to see potentially more of in the next couple of weeks. If we don't, that's great, but I just want to encourage people to be careful because it is dangerous when folks start bumping into each other out there. And I also want to thank Jeremy and his crew for dealing with the snow removal today. I thought they did a good job overall, along with Shane, who's a contractor that does some of the roads for us. I also just wanted to let folks know, because we're getting a lot of questions about it, that El Agave, the 19th hole, is open for dinner for the next while we're continuing to work on the reconstruction, which we haven't gotten to the reconstruction piece yet. We're still in the remediation phase, so that's going to be a few months out. So to help them out, we've agreed to let them extend their hours in the 19th hole. So for folks asking, yeah, they are open for business until I think it's 8 o'clock at night. And then another request is just we have on occasion had folks coming to our front window that are upset about something regarding management of Sudden Valley. And we understand that, you know, if you've had damage to your home from a storm event or something, you're trying to find out if we share that responsibility or not, you may be agitated. I'm just asking you to show some grace to our front staff, because there have been a couple of times they've been a little bit shaken up because people don't. And so I just want to remind people that the folks working there are just trying to connect you with answers. And so please be considerate when you come to the window. We want to help you. Those women want to help you, and George, who does our permitting, who sometimes is there as well. So, you know, we want to help you. Help us help you by being considerate when you come to talk to us. Thanks. And I think that's it. There's some other things that we're going to talk about. I'll talk about the board in an executive session, but those are the main things I wanted to cover for tonight. The thing I'm most excited about, honestly, is we are moving forward. Got some plans in place for moving forward with some of these hirings. And so looking forward to actually getting those done. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Dan. All right. We'll move on to treasurer's report. So I'll pass it over to Kim.
Thank you. I'm just letting everyone know at our last board meeting, we nominated and voted on our finance committee. We had our first meeting last week, and Joel was present, and he covered the December 2021 finances, which he is going to cover for us this evening. And so I will turn the meeting over to Joel, He'll share his screen and cover our December 2021 finances for everyone.
Okay, how's that? Can everyone see the white page with numbers on it?
Yes.
I can.
Beautiful.
Okay, so I'm just, like Kim said, I'm going to go over the year-end December 2021 financial statements. I won't go into it as much depth as I did for the finance committee. I think that took about an hour and a half or so. So I'll give you the Cliff Note version of it. So I always start out with the balance sheets, first page of the financial statements. But in terms of the balance sheet, I'll just hit over big changes in terms of 2021. And I'm sure everyone knows about that PPP loan liability that we took out back in May of 2020, $357,700 we applied for and received forgiveness by the Small Business Administration September of 2021. And so now, since it's off the balance sheet, I'll point it out where it shows up on the income statement, the forgiveness amount of that. But in terms of like cash positions, we're in nice, healthy positions in terms of the amount of cash that we have for the organization, both operating wise. Our net operating assets are nice and positive. The down here is your capital the capital cash accounts. These are all, as you can see, it's up about 2.5 million from the year before. And then down here is just fixed assets, lots held for sale, and then and this is probably the biggest line item that people know about, the SURF loan liability. Obviously, that's decreased by 141,000 from, of course, the formulas make this look like it's gone up, but really it's gone down because it was a negative 1.26 million liability. Now the liability is decreased because of the payments that we've been making over 2021. So now the next page, the most interesting page, the income statement for the organization for 2021, just in terms of just getting down to the bottom line in terms of the operating income. So we finish out the year with $515,474 in a operating surplus. Of course, now some things that have really contributed to that would be, remember that that PPP loan liability that I pointed out right here, that's now dropped to zero. And of course, the offset of that is now it shows up as PPP loan forgiveness. It's a debt extinguishment income line item. So that shows up for us on our income statement as income. So basically, it's releasing the kind of like the equity, so to speak, of that amount. And now in terms of the collection rate, so we ended out the year with 96.8%. Now what we budgeted for was 95% for the year. So as I told the finance committee, basically what that means is for every percent over the collection rate for operations, it's approximately around $22,000 for operations. For capital, it's ballpark about 27,500 or so extra for capital reserves. But so that's the benefit of coming in higher than what the collection rate was budgeted for, because the collection rate, of course, is budgeted for whatever it is. If we budget for a 95% collection rate, and that means the operating budget has been constructed to come out with hopefully a zero balance, not a negative balance at the end of the year. So for us to come in over the collection rate means we gain another 22,000 per 1% that we're over that. Now, I've already calculated the January 2022 collection rate, and that is actually 90.8%, 90.7, 90.8%, but so it's real close to 91%. Now, January is usually always going to be the worst month for us of the year, and then we steadily build up from that point. But in terms of for perspective, in January 2021, we were at 86.7%. We began the year at that, and we ended the year at the 96.8%. And in January 2020, we started out at 86.5% in January, but then we still ended out December 2020 at 95.5%. So for us to basically begin the year at 90.8% is better than what we've done the last couple of years. So we're already starting out 2022 in a good position. Now, in terms of perspective of net income, so last year at the end of 2021, 2020, we had basically a net loss of about 111,000. I'm rounding that number. And obviously now we have a gain of 515,000. Like I said, things that really add to that would be that PPP loan forgiveness, 357,700. We also have, I'll get to it in just a moment here, but golf net income came in at about 108,000, right in that ballpark. So that's really good as well. And with our good collection rate, those are the things that help contribute to having a good operating surplus at the end of 2021. Now I do talk about expense to revenue ratio, which is just whenever I give this revenue or give this ratio, the expense to revenue ratio is exactly what it is. It's total expenses, 3.9 million in this case, divided by total revenues, 4.4 million. And so a lower number is always better. That's what you want to see, a lower number when it comes to this ratio. So we're at 88.4% at the end of 2021. And basically to boil that down, what that means is when I say 88.4%, that means for every dollar of revenues that we took in, we had 88.4 cents of expenses. That's how you can think about it. At the end of November last month, we were at 83.2%, but our net income was higher. December, as you can see, like this negative 189,742 operating loss for the month. December is always characteristically, you're going to see that kind of a loss at the end of December because like major operations like golf and things like that have wound down for the year in terms of providing good revenue. And then you'll see this turnaround basically and starting like from January on for the rest of the year. At the end of December 2020, that expense to revenue ratio is actually 103%. So what that means is for every dollar of revenues that we took in 2020, we spent $1.03 and we had that in expenditures. Now go to the next page. And this, I talk about this for every month, but this capital reserve funds page is it's a really handy page because this gives you a good snapshot. Like I'll focus on SURF and I'll just walk through this real fast. It starts off with your beginning cash at the end of 12/31/2020, that 1.7 million approximately. So I could go right back to the balance sheet and see that amount right there at the end of 2020 for SURF. And then there's the amount at the end of 2021, 2.7 million for SURF. So I would expect to see that right here. So basically then what goes into that would be like the investment income that we get in terms of interest income on our accounts. And then these expenditures right here, this is basically all cash that went out the door to pay for approved capital projects, SURF loan payments, interest, interest expense. And then the obligated expenses, Linda already talked about that, 737 for roads, but then once we have the actual cash position at the end of December 2021, then this 283,525 that I'm subtracting from here is basically going to be, it's the amount of all the projects that the board has approved. Then you'll see like an approval amount, this golf irrigation system, 500,362. How much we've paid out so far, 485,211. Then we have what we have left over, 15,151. So this is kind of what we're still technically on the hook for, 283,525. However, when this was constructed, this capital project report, this is before, actually I met with both Tyler and Sonia. So once, at the end of the year, I'll meet with Tyler especially and get a rundown on what projects, like project statuses, what can I start closing out? And then so most of these will all be closed. Like, golf course irrigation system, that's done. That'll be closed. So then what happens when it's closed is this 15,151 gets unobligated, so to speak. It's released. So then basically this obligated expenses drops by the amount that I'm unobligating, which then increases how much usable cash that you have to work with, that the board could use to approve and slot for other projects to be worked on. So in terms of roads, that's 737,926 obligated expenses. There it is, the 737,926 obligated expenses. Normally, like Linda already pointed this out, this fast response for the floods. Now, yes, she's right. That was approved in 2022, January 27th, 2022. However, this is kind of the one exception to where like I'll pull it back into December 2021, since this project was approved after the fact, like the board ratifying this decision in terms of for addressing the major flood type expenses that were coming in November and December. So this project code is really earmarked for those types of expenditures. And that's why this is kind of an exception where I'll pull this back into just on this December 2021 sheet. So basically what I'm doing is I've now removed 41,424, and that these were sitting in expenses and maintenance temporarily, but now I've taken it out of maintenance and plugged it to that project code. And then when we're done with this, it'll be capitalized like any fixed asset, road and fixed asset, and it'll be depreciated over time. UDR, we do have some obligated expenses for UDR and 49,000, but this is another situation to where like fire-wise, this could just as well, I'm sure, just drop off. I could just remove it. I doubt we'll do any more with that since we're done with it. Unless it was held aside for whatever reason. Like GM recruiting, this amount, obviously we're done with that. But those are amounts that also could be unobligated as well in terms of removing it from this UDR line item. But in terms of like our net usable cash, they're all for the major funds that you're going to really work with: surf, roads, mailboxes, which you'll have capital expenditures coming out of. They're all up. UDR is actually somewhat flat, which is actually pretty good given the fact that we do have these obligated expenses temporarily dragging down this balance that could be released. Now go to the next page. I might just even skip over this page because basically what you're looking at, this is, I pointed this out before, but you're looking at the income statement again, but now you're looking at it in terms of, there's that negative 189,742 operating loss. Then if I went back to the income statement, here it is right here. So instead of looking at it on this view, you're looking at an organizational wide income statement. Now this one just breaks it down in terms of what, as you can see, it's listing departments. So it's telling you what department is responsible for this makeup, how it contributes to it. But since we're doing December, obviously we'll just skip right to the year to date departmental income statement right here. Since this is, at this point, this is really the most important thing since the year is done at this point. Now, in terms of golf, I pointed this out before last month, but golf now for the first time has cracked $1 million in terms of their revenue. They did this previously in the other month. But they're at 1.12 million for the end of December. Last year they did well too. They're at 924,000 rounded, which means they have an increase of income even over last year when they did well of about $196,000. Their total expenses, which is just the actual salary, this is the payroll cost expenses, and then all other expenses right here. In between, you just have budget to worst type. Just letting you know how it's doing in terms of according to the budget. But these two added together, so those two come up to 1,012,269. Last year they had about 869,616. Of course, they were closed for approximately 40 some days around, back when the pandemic in March, at the end of March or so. So their expenditures are up by about 142,653. However, you can see that they ended out the year at $108,020 net income for golf. So they're Actually, they were budgeted to have a loss of, I think, around 25,000 or so, as you can see. So they're actually better than budget by 133,418 for golf. And that's in terms of, that's the biggest department. You do see departments like, like maintenance right here. And, you'll notice it's sitting on about $175,700 loss. The things that contribute to that, the large thing is basically weather. That's about 101,000 of that loss, all the weather type events that happened in 2021. The rest is a hodgepodge of like repair and maintenance and those types of things that just contribute to that. But in terms of like overall, like I said, we did end out the year at over $500,000 of surplus, which is good. So, but I would say those are basically the big highlights of the financial statements, if anyone had any questions.
Joel, you were so thorough. No one has any questions.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's
he
the
left,
goal.
he left us speechless. Good job, Joel.
Yeah.
Yes, very good job, Joel.
There is a hand raised in the attendees currently.
We're out of owner comments. This is the board meeting.
AJ, you're on mute, but you can also email the finance committee at suttonvalley.com for additional questions from the audience.
Yeah, let's let Linda, can you pop in at our next property owner comments just so we can get through some of this stuff? Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. We'll move on to the 2021 auditor engagement letters. After the auditor did its presentation with the board and finance committee a few months ago, we had settled on basically having Joel or having Larson Gross do the 2021 audit and then doing an RFP process to recruit and competitive selection for the following years. I think usually they kind of come in like 3-year engagements that get renewed yearly, which is a pretty good cycle to be on for competitive bidding. But yeah, I think I'll pass it over to Joel for this as well.
So I'm unmuted. Okay. So I guess I probably don't really need to do a screen share on this. But so this, yeah, like what AJ said, back in January 6, 2020, Larson Gross submitted when we went through the RFP process for the auditors, which we do every 3 years. And then the board selected Larson Gross. And so what they put forward was a 3-year basically proposal. And this is actually now the 3rd year for the 2021 audit. So the bid amount, or I mean the amount that on the engagement letter for the fee, stated fee is $28,500, which is right exactly in line with what was on that original RFP quote letter that they gave us back in 2020. So basically, this is just to put in front of the board in terms of, so what Larson Gross will be, or what we'll be doing is the board would be approving the signing of the audit engagement letter and the tax engagement letter. It's kind of a 2-in-1 type thing for the 2021 audit, or for the audit of the 2021 financial statements, and for the 2021 filing of the tax return as well, Form 990 tax return.
Anybody have any questions? All right, well, we can move forward with a motion then. Just trying to. So move that the Board of Directors approve the execution of the 2021 audit and tax return engagement letters with Larson Gross.
Second.
Does anybody have any discussion? All right, call the question on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on to the fines and fee schedule. So as I mentioned in the email to the board, the ones in yellow are the ones that have been, well, I guess there's yellow and orange, have been updated. So is there any questions or discussion around the fines and fee schedule? Sam?
The golf fees, I didn't see the old schedule to compare. I just took a quick look at that. It's like, so, but you're saying that they were adjusted. Was the golf manager part of that?
I can answer that. Yes, he was actually these. So the golf fees come from him for this. And in terms of the marina fees that have been updated, which are just the slip fees, those are, this was discussed as a part of the budget to raise all these by 10%. And that's basically all that's been done for that. So just to pull that in line with what we discussed during the budget process.
Sonia?
Yeah, I'm just curious what do we need to do to ensure that staff is not increasing or changing fees without bringing those requests to the board? Because we all know that that's happened. And golf changes their fees in September. Golf didn't bring this to the board. And I will say that I repeatedly asked for this to come to the board. Joel put these numbers together, and yes, Brian helped, but the reality is that this cannot continue to happen. And so what I'm wondering is what has to happen internally to make sure that these processes and procedures are followed, because we get calls from homeowners asking us, how is this possible? Why aren't you didn't approve these fees? Well, you're right, we didn't, because they didn't come in front of us the way that they're supposed to. And it is not really actually our job to beg staff to put them forward. And so I am asking, what process needs to be put in place internally? Do we need to pass a policy to ensure that when a fee needs to be changed, that these staff members, these managers of these departments do not do that without putting it in front of the board? Because I will say that if this happens again, I'm going to make a motion that all of those funds get returned that were taken that way. It's inappropriate. It needs to change. It needs to stop. This has been going on for months. So I'm curious what the solution is.
Dan?
Yeah, so, I understand your frustration with this, and part of what I've done is I've talked with Brian and I've looked at the fee schedule, and we're going to have the fees brought forward in a timely manner that corresponds to the needs of when they need to be adopted. So for example, the fees related to golf and possibly the marina will be coming back the second meeting in September, so they can be adopted in advance of when the golf course starts selling their 2023 season passes on October 1st, so that they're all adopted and in place before that starts happening. So basically, I think it's fine to adopt a policy as well, saying, what needs to happen. But I also thought it was just pragmatic to look and see, okay, when is the business need for these, and make sure that we get that on the schedule. So that's what I'm doing, is putting them on the schedule. Right now, it may just be once a year in the fall, but we may find that we need to do one in the fall and one in the spring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A policy could be in order, but it would probably be redundant to the bylaws to a large extent. But Timey.
I'm just
All right.
assuming that a lot of the problem will be fixed with having Dan there on a daily basis. I think as he's taking more and more control, I think that problem will pretty much go away. We don't have to worry about being there on an everyday basis. Staff knows they have someone to go to.
It's not, that has nothing to do. This actually literally is how the staff interacts with the board. There's a process that actually, they all do this every year when they need to increase these fees. They put them forward. These department managers do that. So it really doesn't have anything to do with who's there daily. They know this is not new. You can go back and look historically at how they've been put forward. And if you recall, Joel put his forward when he needed to change the lien fees. So we should not have to ask them. No one should have to ask them. That's those department managers' job to bring that forward when they need to change fees. So
I'm just saying with Dan here, like, I just think that they will just naturally go to him. He'll go to the board. You would think that, as he comes in more and more, that should be solved. Just hopeful. Makes sense. We have faith in Dan.
Any other discussions?
I think, Sonia's point's well taken. And of course, Dan is capable and we're so glad he's here. At the same time, we need a culture shift in this organization. And I think us talking about it, I think is an important thing to set that in motion. So I think there is some change that needs to happen. And I think Sonia is rightly pointing that out. And it was really the cause, a lot of that is the cause of the last conversation, right? The whole ADA thing. And yeah, and we obviously care about the ADA. We're all very caring people here, and I resent the implication that we're not, so we're doing the best we can.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, I'll move that the board of directors approve the fines and fee schedule as presented in the board agenda packet.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we will move to Communications Committee Charter. I'll pass that over to Sonia, bringing that back from document review.
Okay, so this charter, what happened was this charter came to document review because what we plan to do is create a charter template that will work for all the ad hoc committees so that they will look the same. Because one of the things that we have encountered is, they don't follow the same procedures and processes. We had issues with, committees making subcommittees with people, non-board members, and not meeting quorum, and then wondering why there was no action, which also addresses what we were talking about earlier with Rob, because there are these processes, and if you don't go through them and you don't go through these proper channels, there is a disconnect between the funds and what you want. And so committees are there to support the board, and those funds and those committees need to work together and implement the strategy. And so we're really trying to get all of this kind of where it's working better together. But meanwhile, because of the time, we did not have time to actually just address those templates. And because communications committee needs to get moving, they got a lot of work to do. So our committee voted unanimously to just go ahead and move that committee charter forward, the same charter as it was written last year, just with the changes that ensure that if they are done, that community members can participate live via Zoom in those meetings. So that's it. I'll throw it back to you, AG. Oh, wait, I guess I should say the document review committee recommends that the board accept the communications charter as written in the agenda.
Is that the motion? Second.
Any discussion?
There's a note that there's an error in on number 3. References 2021, not 2022.
That's Nancy's fault. We can change that.
Now, no blaming.
I approve this and contingent that's fixed.
Yeah, we can just make a friendly amendment to the document that says we change that date.
I love friendly amendments, just so you know.
Well, I'm glad we could make that happen. Any other discussion? All right. Motion on the table was for the board to approve document review's recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, move it on, and I'll give it over to Josh for committee member approvals.
Yeah, I have a few. I have 28 members to approve. Just kidding, just a few. So I have Trang Warline, Ann Cope, Liz Vidal, Timey Vanderpolder, Sandy, what's your last name? Mitchell. And we have Kanu Sharma, who would be joining us on the communications committee, and I would like approval on all these great people.
Any objections? All
Oh,
right.
wait. Colleen Mitchell too.
Yep.
Right, Sandy? Sorry about that. It's been a long day.
Good catch. That was who we had on the last agenda. All right. Any objections? All right. Hearing none, that gets approved by acclamation. All right. Move into property owner comments. Can bring Linda over again if she.
Yeah, Linda
wants to.
Actually, hand just went down. So we've got, oh, there we go. Okay, Linda does have her hand raised. So I'll go ahead and bring you on over now. And you can unmute when you're ready, Linda.
Okay, after listening to all of this, I have some questions that I wonder if I can get an answer to. So El Agave just started working out of the 19th hole. I know it was mentioned by Dan a while back that there was no December rent that was charged to them. So I'm wondering, are they being asked to pay full rent now, partial rent? What's the, they certainly have a drop in their revenue in operating out of the 19th hole. There's a lot of their stuff they can't do that are popular events that they have and stuff. So I'm curious what we're doing about the rent and the utilities that they pay.
So we're currently negotiating that with them as at the moment. So we'll be likely having an addendum to the lease to cover those issues.
Okay, that answers that. Then I know that Dan has been doing oral reports. In the past, part of the board packet for the second meeting of the month, there used to be a formal general manager's report that gave some really, really good information about operations and stuff. And I wonder, are we going to go back to that sort of thing? You tell about how many actual employees we had in different departments, FTEs, how we were doing with the budget, all sorts of different things, as well as different updates like he gives on different things. And I wondered if you're going to be putting that back as part of this second meeting of the month.
I'll let Dan answer that, but we have discussed.
So yeah, the short answer is yes. There's been a lot of stuff going on. So there's been a lot of things in flux. So I have not provided that, but I will be providing that starting in March.
It's just kind of nice because we can look at it and read it. If we don't have any questions, it answers all of that. There should be a template laying around there somewhere that you should be able to access, rather than start from scratch and stuff, I would hope. Also, I guess I asked this at the last meeting and no one has responded to me about, there was a conflict with one of the postings that you had for a job opening and the CBA with the union. And has something changed?
We've addressed all those issues with the union at this point. So
okay, supervise, I'm saying it's just strange. I don't know how that changes, but anyway, I will. But anyway, the last thing I have is you guys did a bunch of minutes in January. One of the things you didn't do was any AGM minutes. Now, I realize that might have been the responsibility. I'm not certain when there was a resignation, but you're missing your AGM minutes, and those are supposed to be done actually at the following regular meeting of the board, according to Roberts, and normally that's been done. And I wondered when and how you guys are finally going to get caught up with those AGM minutes.
Well, we actually talked with the parliamentarian about this, and the members actually approved the AGM minutes at the AGM. Is how it's supposed to happen.
Well, then he doesn't read Roberts, because that's how they do that. But it says that you shouldn't.
I think he reads Robert's rules, Linda.
Well, I know he
just
my whole thing is I don't know. Then exactly when are you going to create these minutes that the membership is going to approve? Right before the AGM?
No.
No. They'll get put on the website for the membership to be able to review and approve at the next AGM.
Okay, it's just strange that Robert says that, and and he's a new dude, so I don't know about that, because I know what Robert says, and it's pretty specific that it shouldn't go a whole year. So I don't know, but that was my last question.
Yeah, my understanding talking with John Berg was that it is the membership who has to approve the minutes, and that's what I've read in Robert's rules.
And what he said,
and the membership doesn't have a meeting at the next board meeting to approve minutes.
No, but they'll get posted. Linda, I thought you were in the meeting when we discussed that with him, but they'll get posted online. But as far as the just for reference, but the approval will act, like AJ said, will happen at the next AGM, but they will get posted online.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
All right, thank you, Linda. And anybody else for property owners' comments? Oh, we've got Leslie with a hand raised. I'll go ahead and bring Leslie on over. And you can unmute when you're ready.
Okay. AJ, I think, could you clarify something for me? The bylaws include the document review committee, and it describes their purpose and their membership, etc. Are they considered a standing committee? Because they are in the bylaws.
Yes.
Yeah.
AJ, what do you think? I'm asking AJ.
Mhm.
Okay, Leslie. Yes, I believe any committee that's written into the bylaws would be considered a standing committee.
Okay, because that is contrary to what Director Vogt said at the DRC meeting. She stated that they are a committee of the board and they have the authority to act independently, that they were not a standing committee. And if you will check the audio, if you will check the video of that meeting, you will see exactly what she said.
And I
Thank
will
you.
repeat what I said. Thank you. Because if you're going to say that, I'll go ahead and actually repeat what I said, which is that we are a committee of the board. Those standing committees, and especially the document review, is a committee of the board. We do have the authority to act as the board. And I went on to explain exactly what I meant, which was ad hoc committees and advisory committees take directives from the board. The document review committee has the unique ability to actually review our governing documents, our policies, and all of our governance structures, and to review them and determine what do we need to change. And we can make recommendations to the board without the board making a motion and giving us a directive to do something. We can act independently and make a determination that we need to review or make a bylaw recommendation. And that was actually the full part of what I said.
Okay, if you will please go back and listen to that. You said specifically, the document review committee is not a standing committee.
I said it's a committee of the board.
You said it is not a standing committee.
It has the ability to act independently. Because, and then I explained what that meant. I went on to explain that we have the ability to actually make recommendations to the board, that we are not just an advisory committee. The board actually, that we don't have to sit there and wait for the board to give us a directive. If we see something that needs to change, or we need to review, that's actually our obligation to this association.
Okay, and I have written down exactly what was said. And you said it is a committee of the board. Yes. It is not a regular standing committee. It has the same authority as the board and can take action independently of the board. Those were your words.
That's right. And there was the sentence continued. We are not a regular standing committee. The other committees do not have the ability to do that. We have very specific authority to actually make those determinations without being directed by the board.
Thank you.
By the way,
Leslie.
if you, I do want to say, if you go into 2403, which is what we were formed under, it'll actually address that too, which it does say that the standing committee of the board has the authority of the board. That does not mean, just to be really clear to anybody that hears that, no board director can act unilaterally or independently. We can't take any action without a vote of the board. That's not what that means. That very specifically, and I expanded on it, had everything to do with the fact that we do not have to wait for the board to give us a directive to look at a policy or review the bylaws or anything else. We can make that determination ourselves and make the recommendation to the board.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Leslie, I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees at this point. And I do have a hand raised from Norm. Norm, I'll go ahead and bring you on over here, and you can unmute when you're ready.
Kind of unmute Norm.
Yeah, there we go.
There you
Okay, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the RV storage. I know I've talked to a couple of board members and I've worked with some of the maintenance people, and I know where we're at right now. We're going to have to get out of there, and we've discussed going over to a new location. I know in the last couple of meetings, AJ had mentioned that there is money in there so that we can do something with it. I know there's a lot of problems going on right now in the community with the flooding, trying to get things taken care of. I just wonder if there's anything that the board has discussed as to when they might actually get started with this.
the board hasn't discussed anything as a whole in one of our meetings. But it is something, the flood stuff kind of derailed some of the stuff that we're working on. We had to pivot a bit to do these critical infrastructure projects. But I think it is something that's on P&W's radar as far as developing projects for moving forward. So it is something that we're working on. We're obviously still bringing Dan on board and some of these other maintenance managers and stuff. So we're trying to get some of that stuff taken care of. And we kind of got to prioritize what gets accomplished. Not saying that we're not working on it, but it is something that's kind of in our, near term to evaluate and bring a recommendation back before finance committee and the board on some sort of project for that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know that's going to be additional revenue if we do get to the new location, that we could make over 85,000 a year on that. So if that's something that board members need to talk about, then that would help. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we just got to get Tyler to develop some costs in a project scope essentially for us, so the board can have that discussion and have proper education on everything.
Great. Thank you, AJ.
Thanks, Norm.
All right. Thank you, Norm. And I've got you returned to the attendees as well. Anybody else for property owners' comments? Not seeing anyone else at this time.
All right. Well, we will move on to our next agenda item. Do I have make a motion to move into closed session?
Motion to move into closed session.
We'll say it together.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. See you
Aye.
later.
You won the race, Sandy.
Yeah. I was just wondering, I have no idea what's going on with my machine that I can't log into the Outlook. So maybe if we could just have a 15-minute chat at a more reasonable hour.
Sounds
So
like
to
a
walk
plan.
me through it, because I have 4 systems in front of me right now, and I have multiple Gmails, but I am just blocked on this for some reason for getting in.
I'll get in touch with you tomorrow, and we'll schedule a time that we can go.
Yeah, I think 15 minutes is all I'm gonna need. But yeah, I pushed the button to leave, and then they started going, and I'm not going back.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
But they're coming.
okay. Sounds good.
The promise was 2 hours. Kim's already left ship 10:30, and communication, Josh, he left before that. So we're dwindling, and I get up at 4:30, so. But I like it. I'm done at 2 o'clock every day. I just, every so often I have a problem, like I deliver the dogs at 2 o'clock, and the groomer says, but it's only 11 in Bellingham. Just one of those bi-coastal problems.
Yeah.
Wow, they really did get into a bigger talk. So are you in Bellingham?
Here where I'm at right now is Linden.
But you work in the general area.
I do. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I work out of the office there at admin, above the pro shop, I suppose.
Yeah, I have a whole list of questions, but someday I'd like to walk the golf course, and I know I'm not allowed to it. So is there a time slot, Wednesday mornings that somebody could sneak out and walk? And because I voted on things and I've never seen the bridge or the golf course.
Is there a time coming up? Is there an orientation or something? I think that's being
I'm
scheduled?
hoping. I have my question list for those kinds of things.
I think there's something like that that's normally done. I'm not aware of the details of that, but I'm pretty sure there'll be some form of board orientation.
Yeah, I think it's sometime in March, but I just, it's hard to make decisions when you haven't seen it. So I can travel and find roads, and I've learned what a culvert bridge is, but it's really hard to understand a $300,000 bridge on a golf course.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to rub it.
Yeah.
I want
to get to know. Yeah.
Selfie.
Anne's mentioning here that there are certain hours that the golf course can be walked in the evenings.
Oh, good.
Maybe just give a call to the pro shop. They might have those. They kind of going straight to the horse's mouth, so to speak. They might have the details of something like that.
Yeah, good. I didn't think of that. Well, you come in the middle of a pandemic, and then it's winter, and so these are ideas that now crop up as it's going to be sunny tomorrow, they say. Thank you, Anne. I will look forward to that time slot when I can sneak out and walk around.
Yeah, I think some kind of tour would probably be beneficial too, if you wanted to see kind of a little bit more of Sudden Valley, and like you mentioned, the bridges and what have you.
Well, and which building is the ice barn, or where was this other building that I hear history about, or
Absolutely.
I've wandered around a little bit, but
yeah. Yeah, I benefited from that when I first came to work for Sudden Valley. So I certainly, as a board director, that'd be beneficial.
Onboarding is the same for board or an employee. You still got to have some of the basics.
Some understanding of the community. Absolutely.
All right, John, I'm going to make a promise I can keep, and I'm never going to promise when the meeting's going to be over. Never again.
It's all right. Josh's words are kind of sticking out, you know. But
Yeah, you jinxed me last time, AJ, when you said you were going to be up all night, and I'm going, no big deal. Turn on the TV for half an hour. You're asleep. I was up till like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I'm like, damn it.
My brain's always racing after having to run these meetings. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 board members, so looks good to me.
Move to adjourn.
Gotta move back into open session.
Oh, shoot, open session. Now move to adjourn?
No, I don't think we had. Do we have a motion to move back into open?
Yes,
No.
motion
Okay.
to move back into open session.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, no action being taken as a result of closed session. Motion to adjourn.
Motion, second.
All right. Everyone have a good night.
Good night.
good night, everybody.